peaks associated with the offsets near Penargil. There are supposedly more of these on those ridges I have not found yet, but I'm planning to go up there. I know of an outcrop I think that they might be on. They also have one of these on top of Point Mountain in Hunterdon County. So it was something that we're looking at, something that's probably thousands of years old. And they weren't sure what they had when they first had it. The previous owner of this property was Mr. Marden. He sold to the state, but when he first sold, he exempted the flat area we see up here. We don't know for sure if this was all cleared by previous owners or if it might have been a clearing area done by Aboriginal people. That's entirely possible too. There has been no archaeological study at this site. The only thing that happened when it came to studying for Native American activity here was Martin befriended a Native American man he brought up here, and he says, I'd like you to see this site and tell me for sure if this is what we think it is. And he said, now Martin was one of these guys that apparently he's not very superstitious or anything like that, so the story's been passed to me. At this point, it's third hand. But Martin brought him up here, and the man said, yeah, this was our main communications center, and he says, this is a sacred spot. He said that the Native American stood on the rock, put his arms up in the air like this, and started chanting, and then from over the slope, vultures came up and formed this like vortex over him. And Martin said that was the most incredible thing. What was that? And it turns out there's a vulture rookery that's supposed to be in these woods down here. I haven't gone and looked at it yet. But the Native American told him that he was convening with his dead ancestors. Now, Native Americans saw vultures as a sacred animal. And he said, nobody likes the vultures, but we need them because they clean up the ground and they eat the dead. And it's through the vultures that they can commune with their dead ancestors. So that's why they're a sacred thing. That's why this site was sacred, both because it was a high peak, they could communicate here, and they had the vulture rookery here. So a very interesting thing, and this is the spot that is the reason I would like to see this designated officially as a Native American historic site. So we were supposed to have the tribesman come up here. Unfortunately, he was from one of the reservations in Oklahoma. I'm also in contact with one of the ones from a reservation out in Canada. We're hoping to have them come down here, look at this site at the same time that they look at the native site at Delaware Water Gap, which is something that they're doing to fight the rock wall. Now, if you're not familiar with the rock wall plan in Delaware Water Gap, they want to put an 80-foot high rock fence through the water gap that will be visible from this overlook. That would seriously undermine the natural character of the Delaware Water Gap, and it's based on statements that these rock falls are causing accidents on Route 80 through there. Really, it's the S-curves, and when we double-checked it with police reports and found that NJDOT was putting rocks in the road on their report, but the state police report says box in the road, muffler in the road. They do not have a single instance of a rock in Route 80 through the Delaware Water Gap that they can back up. But they're spending, it's supposed to be like a $9 billion project or something now. The price keeps going up, they keep doing more studies, and the state just recently hired a lobbying firm to continue pushing for this. So there's a big fight against it, and this overlook is quietly becoming part of that fight. One of the superintendent of Worthington, while off the clock, has used my photos from this to continue to help the fight against this horrible thing from taking place. What the initiative would be is to fix the S-curve. It's one of the most dangerous sections of highway in the state, but it's not because of rock falls, it's because of the curves. Technically, Route 80 through the water gap could lose its interstate designations because it does not fall within the parameters that interstates are supposed to have. It even has an exit that you pull out onto the highway from a stop sign, which alone should be enough to eliminate its interstate designation. That would be a lot of funding differences and stuff. So we might hear more about this over the next year as that fight continues. You'll also hear some more about this site when it comes to the warehouses going up through here, which is another very controversial thing because our roads can't handle them. Route 519 is a small road. It connects Route 78 and Route 80, but it goes through busy areas and rural areas, both of which can't handle the weight of a lot of heavy trucks. Over by Route 80, you can't have more tractor trailers going through the Delaware Water Gap. 15 out of 30 days within a month study period, there was traffic backup, and every single one of the incidents involved a tractor trailer, whether they caused it or not. So when they look at possibly doubling the amount of that traffic going through the water gap, it becomes a serious argument. So once again, you'll start to hear more about this site as that becomes more politically to the forefront. And I think as pandemic stuff slows down, you're going to start seeing a lot more of these other natural issues are going to be coming about. So that's a bit more of it. One of the properties that's eyed for a warehouse is one we're going to be walking adjacent to. It's a 16-acre tract that's going for like $300,000. And I tried to get the state to purchase it, and they said it was too expensive. So the owner wants a warehouse. So that's another big thing right there. And it's right in the Buckhorn Creek watershed. So there's a lot of nature versus industrial things going on, and protecting watersheds, protecting natural resources, and hopefully this will bring some positive attention to this site, and we can eventually have something up here. Martin originally kept this tract separate from the rest because he wanted to have a shrine to the Native Americans, but he didn't know what was appropriate, nor did he have the funds to make it happen. So I would like to, with our team at Spruce Run, make that happen. But before we can do that, that's another reason it's important to have the Native American representative come up here, because we want what's appropriate and what their tribe would vote on and see as appropriate for their heritage. So that's all stuff that's hopefully coming up in the future, and I think this is probably one of the most important sites that's owned by Spruce Run Voorhees and Hackle-Barney State Park. It's becoming more prominent thanks to Deidre for putting the maps up on the page, and more people asking questions about it, and the more people know about it and tell people about it, we need positive use on the property. As much as we like to keep these places secret, there's also people up here that don't want anybody else to use it and just come up here and throw trash around and ride ATVs like crazy. So it's kind of something that we need to have more positive use on it, and because we all own it, and if we don't, then we could lose some of this resource. So let's keep telling people about it, and the more eyes we have on the property from positive people, the less underhanded things are going to go on. Martin actually owned it for a while. One of the things that almost happened here was a house almost went up because my grandfather surveyed this. And he was good friends with the guy that invented the navigation systems in commercial jets. And him and my grandmother used to go out to dinner with him all the time. He was an old guy at the time, and he wanted to settle down into this area for retirement, but he wanted to build a house on a ridgetop. And my grandfather says, well, I know a spot that maybe you might be interested in, and he walked him up here. And he said, but the thing is, you probably can't deal with any of these grades, and the property doesn't cover enough land to get up here. And this guy had so much money, he was talking about building an elevator up this. So it's also a good thing that didn't happen either. But yeah, he went and we brought him up here with the superintendent and the head of Green Acres and stuff. And my grandfather told that whole story as well. So there's a lot of near misses when it comes to this property, and we're really lucky to have it. Hopefully in a year or so, maybe in one of the next first day hikes, because I intend to do these every year as we add new things. There's going to be another trail going down this way, and we've got sort of preliminary approval to connect another way to Merle Creek Reservoir. They were not in the past amenable to having these new connections. They are now, because there's new employees there, and a few people retired, and now we're possibly moving forward, and I would love to see that happen by next year. It could be that our first day hike next year would be a loop.
It would be 8 miles.
Well, we'll make it longer by doing all the Merle Creek stuff too. We don't do 8 miles. So anyway, if anybody wants to have a look, I recommend everybody have a look at this, because it's really an amazing spot, and it is one of the most prominent examples of Aboriginal habitation in New Jersey. One of the only other things that you'll see that's remnant of that is the eel racks in the river, where you have like a Y. And that was where they would try to chase the eels down the river and have them caught in the middle. And the colonists adopted a lot of that and reused some of the Native American structures, and they did that. Those are some of the only other remnants you'll have of it. You'll find cairns and things like that, but just not a lot of stuff. So again, I haven't really looked for petroglyphs on this yet, but I intend to spend some more time up here along the rocks and see if I can find anything. You got to be here at a certain time of day, and sometimes with a flashlight, looking at it at an angle, in order to reveal where petroglyphs are. Most of the petroglyphs I found in New Jersey all require a flashlight at a certain angle to see it. So I would suspect that there's probably something here. We'll see. Anybody have any questions?